Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include the Activision Blizzard fiasco, the reception to Path of Exile's new league, a roundup of ARPG news, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now, before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Elion. If you folks remember Terra, which was a successful MMORPG that launched in 2012, which I actually reviewed back when I was working as a games journalist, well, Elion is a new MMO from those same creators, set in a fantasy world with sci-fi, far-future magical technology. Features of the game will include deep skill customization, massive realm versus realm battles featuring heavy artillery, magical mechas, and dragons, clan wars to control dimensional portals, extensive character customization, they say that no two characters will be the same, and crafting, trading, dungeons, PvE, PvP, everything you expect from an MMORPG. And you can sign up for the closed beta testing to try it out yourself, which started July 26th and will run until August 11th, with keys for a second closed beta planned to be delivered on August 13th. And you can enter a giveaway for a chance to win not only an Elion closed beta test access pass, but also a $50 Steam gift card by following the link in the video description. 10 winners will be selected. Also, add Elion to your Steam wishlist to keep track of the game and get notified of any updates, like a release date. Alright, let's kick things off with the biggest story of the week. The Activision Blizzard fiasco. This story began last week. Be sure to have checked out last week's video to see how things started, with Blizzard being sued by the state of California for, quote, violations of the state's civil rights and equal pay laws, pertaining specifically to its treatment of women. The lawsuit goes on to allege far worse than simple pay inequity, and it was the culmination of a 2-year investigation into some seriously disturbing allegations. As always, links to sources and further reading can be found in the video description. Well, Blizzard's first public response to the lawsuit was from a spokesperson who basically denied the allegations and called into question the legitimacy of the lawsuit itself, claiming that it, quote, includes distorted and in many cases false descriptions of Blizzard's past. The following day, after many current and former Blizzard employees started to come forward with testimonials on social media that corroborated the lawsuit's allegations, Blizzard president J. Allen Brack sent an internal memo to his company, which leaked to the public, and the memo expressed a strong support for women and a firm stance against discrimination and harassment. He condemned the behavior detailed in the allegations as, quote, completely unacceptable. However, around the same time, Activision Blizzard executive Fran Townsend sent a different internal memo that called the lawsuit, quote, meritless and irresponsible, and told Blizzard employees that the lawsuit, quote, presented a distorted and untrue picture of our company, including factually incorrect, old, and out-of-context stories, some more than a decade ago. Well, as you can imagine, many employees didn't exactly appreciate Blizzard's public response or internal responses to the lawsuit. Some employees wrote a letter and passed it around to current and former Blizzard employees to sign. And last I checked, it accumulated almost 4,000 signatures. The letter condemned Blizzard's reaction to the lawsuit, calling Blizzard's statements, quote, abhorrent and insulting to all that we believe our company should stand for. The letter further asked Activision Blizzard to recognize the seriousness of the accusations and to, quote, demonstrate compassion. Blizzard employees later began organizing a walkout in protest, which was scheduled for Wednesday the 28th. And on the day before the walkout, Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick issued a public statement of his own. In it, he said, quote, our initial responses to the issues we faced together and to your concerns were, quite frankly, tone deaf. I am sorry that we did not provide the right empathy and understanding. Kotick went on to detail a list of actions that the company will be taking to improve, starting right away, which would include a review process of managers and leaders within the company, and that an external law firm will be conducting a review of Blizzard's policies and procedures to ensure they, quote, promote a respectful and inclusive workplace. The protesting Blizzard employees seemed content with the change in tone of the communication from their leadership, but felt that Codic's message failed to address many of their concerns. Quote, "While we are pleased to see that our collective voices have convinced leadership to change their tone of their communications, this response fails to address critical elements at the heart of employee concerns." The following day, the walkout happened as scheduled. The websites upcomer.com and Redlands Daily Facts have photos of the protests, and I encourage you folks to visit the links in the description to check out the photos for yourself. The purpose of the walkout was a protest against Blizzard leadership to demand improved working conditions at the company. Employees released an official statement of demands and also encouraged anyone from the public who wished to show their support to donate to a chosen list of initiatives. I'll of course link that below as well, and I just want to take a moment to highlight that it's great that they did that. When this story was first breaking last week, a lot of people wanted to show their support, but didn't necessarily know what the best way to do that would be. So having a clear, hey, if you care about us, these are things that you can do that actually help us, is really great. Then the World of Warcraft team made a statement of its own via the official World of Warcraft Twitter account, promising to make changes both in and out of game. The team was scant on details, but it's clear that they are working to remove references to certain former employees from within the game, with one of the more egregious examples being former WoW senior creative director Alex Afrasiabi, who quietly left Blizzard last summer and whose name appears prominently in the allegations in the lawsuit. And Blizzard as a company confirmed this week that Alex Afrasiabi was fired last year over, quote, misconduct in his treatment of other employees. So, if he was fired for this last year, why are we acting surprised this week? Oh, I had no idea this stuff was happening in our company. You know, apart from that guy we fired for doing this stuff in our company. But I mean, he was just some low-level nobody. He was only with Blizzard for 16 years, senior creative director on World of Warcraft, well connected with some of the senior leadership at Blizzard, spoke at BlizzCon panels. No one knew this guy.
I love the fact that you have a lot of very strong female characters. However, I was wondering if we could have some that don't look like they've stepped out of a Victoria's Secrets catalog.
Could you see Sylvanas looking any other way? Right. So we feel you, and we want to vary our female characters, absolutely. So yeah, we'll pick different catalogs.
Now, it seems Blizzard's lawsuit is creating a wave in the industry, because anyone who thinks problems like these only exist at Blizzard are in for some terrible, terrible news. Current and former Ubisoft employees shared this week their own open letter addressed to Ubisoft's management team and to Activision Blizzard employees. The letter expressed solidarity with the Activision Blizzard employees and called for an industry-wide collaboration on improving how harassment is handled. Quote, "It is clear from the frequency of these reports that there is a widespread and deeply ingrained culture of abusive behavior within the industry. It should no longer be a surprise to anyone, employees, executives, journalists, or fans, that these heinous acts are going on. It is time to stop being shocked. We must demand real steps be taken to prevent them. Those responsible must be held accountable for their actions." Last I checked, the letter had over 500 signatures from employees across 32 Ubisoft studios. I know some people are very opposed to unions. I do know that corruption in unions can lead to problems of its own, but for now, it just seems unionizing is the only thing that could really help employees in the video game sector. On to some Path of Exile news. We're a week into Expedition League now, and patch 3.15. A patch that everyone knew would be at best controversial due to the huge nerfs. I've encouraged people to give it a fair try before deciding you hate it, and after lots of people have tried it, the reception has been a mixed bag. I've spoken to people who are overall positive about the changes. I've spoken to people who were mostly okay with the changes but felt that the mana nerfs were too strong. and I've seen an abundance of Reddit threads that dislike the changes. One criticism brought up was that slowing down the pace of the game makes us spend more time in the campaign, and players were already complaining about having to redo the campaign over and over and over at the start of every league. Diablo 3's adventure mode was brought up as a well-implemented system where players can start doing endgame activities right away without needing to do the campaign again. And you know, when the PoE community is saying anything positive about Diablo 3, that's significant. The huge nerfs to mana cost were a common complaint. Some players felt the nerf to mobility felt bad, and that overall this direction was not the type of game they wanted to play. Some players enjoyed blitzing through maps, having some relaxing, mindless fun, and feel that this direction takes that game that they've been enjoying away from them. Now, others argue that Path of Exile's greatest strength is not its combat mechanics, but rather its game systems and character builds, and slowing down the game puts more focus on one of the weaker aspects of the game, because ARPGs in general have simple combat systems relative to a game like Dark Souls. Still, other players seem okay with the new direction, but feel that if we are going to commit to this slower game, then the game needs to stop encouraging or demanding fast gameplay. Game mechanics with countdown timers either need to be removed or the timers need to be extended to account for this slower pace. As for the league mechanic itself, that seems to have been met with a lukewarm but positive response. There's some complaints. It's definitely no one's favorite league, but it's certainly not getting a huge amount of complaints that you see with some of the worst received leagues. And the league launch itself was one of the smoothest in possibly years. Well, it only took a couple of days before Chris Wolcen posted to Reddit early in the week to address some preliminary feedback and comments from the Reddit community. Quote, "A lot of players have tried to derive our player concurrency numbers based on the data shown for Steam users, and have expressed concern that fewer people played this expansion than the previous two. To be transparent, the number is that 23% fewer players joined us at launch compared to our all-time record, and this is something we were prepared for. In addition to the normal variance between releases, we completely understand that Path of Exile had a lot of changes in 3.15, and this is definitely unnerving to some players." On the subject of mana cost nerfs, he said, quote, "Yes, they were too extreme. Based on feedback and data, we are reviewing the mana cost multipliers again, and will be reducing many, but not all of them. While this will ease the impact of your mana by a moderate amount, the goal is still that mana matters a lot more than it did before." He also detailed some planned buffs to the duration of flask effects and a buff to Arctic armor, which was a nice surprise. Now, I've seen some people expressing the sentiment, if you don't like the changes happening to Path of Exile, just quit the game. Stop complaining, just leave. And I don't think that's fair. Players absolutely have the right to voice their opinions. They should be civil about it, but they have the right to express themselves about changes being made to a hobby they enjoy, a hobby they may have invested money in. Devs don't have to listen to them, but the players have every right to voice themselves. Their disagreement, their displeasure with the direction a game is taking. If I go to your restaurant for 10 years and I think you make the best pizza, and one day I see pizzas taken off the menu, you make calzones instead. And you really believe that calzones are what's best for your business. They're like pizza, but more portable. Then, as a loyal patron of your business, of course, I'd have the right to come up and tell you, hey, you made amazing pizza. I really think you should keep pizza on the menu. I come here to buy your pizza. I don't like calzones as much. And as a business owner, you should be happy to hear that feedback, rather than just one day realize you have no customers left without anyone telling you anything. Now, the other issue here, though, is that there are different types of players in Path of Exile. This applies to most games. But extremely different types of players. A lot of players never even make it through the campaign during the league. They don't even get to mapping. They're playing an entirely different game. And that's just an example. So what happens when one group of players likes a change and another group doesn't? What if it turns out that I never realized you have a group of customers who come to your restaurant just to grab your breadsticks to eat on the go, and they love these portable calzones, these mini pizzas that they can eat on the go? Well, that's the problem. The more divided your customer base, the more challenging it is to make everyone happy. At some point, you have to make a decision. who do you most want to cater to? Because some people like pizza and some people like calzones, but no one really likes a calzone that's been cut open and folded out into a makeshift pizza. Now, on the note of player concurrency numbers, community member Nemesis has been keeping track of absolute and relative Steam player concurrency numbers for some time now. Which, to a first approximation, the Steam numbers represent roughly half of the player base. So this chart we're looking at right now tracks relative retention. That is, starting with 100% of players on day 1 of a league launch and expansion launch, what percentage of players are still playing after X days. As you can see, Expedition has had the worst relative retention in years, losing over 40% of its player base in a week. However, it should be pointed out that relative retention only speaks to one part of the equation. Absolute player numbers can still be good. So let's look at the absolute numbers now. As you can see, the absolute numbers are still higher this expansion than a few other past expansions, though we're still in the bottom third of the last 16 leagues. And most of the leagues with lower absolute player counts are much older, and PoE has been steadily growing in player counts over time. So from purely player metrics, it's clear this is not a popular league. First off, the fact that league start numbers aren't among the highest suggest a lot of players decided to skip the league without even trying it, and then the huge drop-off suggests that those who tried it, well, more players than ever are quitting the league. Again though, I need to point out that these are just Steam numbers, the game has its own launcher, and again, to a first approximation, half of players use the proprietary launcher. GGG has the exact data on all this, of course, and how they decide to digest this data is up to them. Do they stay the course with this direction for future leagues? Do they take a step back? Time will tell. On to some quick Wolcen news. The new content patch Arise launched this week, bringing a complete summons revamp, new environments, new cosmetic armor, quality of life improvements, and bug fixes. The devs also released their monthly dev update in which they spoke a bit about the new endgame systems that they're developing. Quote, "Our goal is to give you more things to do in endgame. This is why we are designing new endgame activities with several levels of difficulty that will affect the number of enemies, the timer to complete the activity, the HP of the enemies, etc. We will also include a targeted reward system to give you better control over what kind of equipment you'll get. Here are a couple of examples of these activities. Conquer Arena. Reach key locations and conquer them by killing waves of enemies. Interact Kill. Interact with entities to trigger a boss fight. Hold Defend. Kill enemies while defending civilians. Timer Kill. Kill the target. You can also complete a secondary objective before the end of the timer to obtain more rewards." In quick last Epoch news, we got a short teaser for some new skills for the Sentinel class, which we should be finding out more about very soon. In quick Lost Ark news, the devs have showcased the contents of the Western Releases Founders Pack. While Lost Ark will be free to play when it releases in fall, the Founders Pack will grant beta access, a 3-day head start access at launch, and exclusive cosmetics. In quick Diablo 4 news, Blizzard senior casting and voice director Andrea Toioiz did an interview with Backstage in which she revealed some insight into casting the voices of Diablo 4. When asked what it's like casting Diablo 4, she said, quote, "For Diablo 4, it's very dark, very grim. It's a game of rough existence. It's been challenging. We're looking all over the globe because there are lots of accents to really find performances where people, through their voice alone, can convey the weight of the world." I found it really interesting how this grim dark theme is conveyed not just in the art and story, but also in the voice casting. Toioiz explained how the lockdowns and everything over the past year served as a source of real-life inspiration for the actors to draw upon. She said, quote, "I think for the actors I've found so far who've recorded, it's almost like an outlet. When they come in on Diablo 4, actors don't have to hide what they've been going through for the year. If you're tired and exhausted and sad and a little bit scared, don't push that away for the session. Bring that into the session because that's Diablo 4. It's been kind of exciting and hard and heavy, but to let the truth of our own lives come into the game. I think that's really going to sell the game and make our characters more real and empathetic." And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But Do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discuss what went wrong inside Blizzard to screw up the Warcraft 3 remaster. Also, as a reminder, we're doing our Patreon poster drive again this year. If you want to get your name on that banner, all you got to do is be a Patreon supporter even at $1 tier by the end of August. We'll be selling those in the merch shop. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.